the computer. So good afternoon, and thank you so much for coming to Freelance Mum Lunch and Learn. It is gorgeously gorgeous to see you. Just to remind you that very much in the spirit of Lunch and Learn, if you want to quite literally turn up, watch Lunch and Learn, turn your camera off and eat your cheese and pickle sandwich, that's absolutely fine. We're more than happy for you to do that. Do this in a way that works for you. If similarly, you're the sort of person who knows you'll be more accountable if you'll keep your camera on, that is me. Keep your camera on. It's always lovely to see faces, we hasten to add. So do give us a wave at the end, even if you turn your camera off during Lunch and Learn. This is a really special Lunch and Learn. Double header with two freelance mums from across the hub. So it's gorgeous to bring them together and do this in true freelance mum style. And we're putting our heads together and we're having to think about what can we do to set your children up for the summer. And so we've come up with this fantastic Lunch and Learn with Sarah and Sophie from the Swansea Hub and from the Digital Hub. So we're going to do a quick 1 minute intro from Sarah and then to Sophie, and then we'll hand over to Sarah. So for the sake of anyone who may not have connected with you yet, Sarah, do you want to give us a little intro to yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm the founder of Breathwork for Children, and we support families and children with emotional regulation and resilience. And I will talk a bit more about that as we go through.
Yay, thank you, Sarah. And over to you, Sophie.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a specialist paediatric occupational therapist supporting kids from the root upwards.
Gorgeous. Okay, what a session we've got here. I'm going to hand over now to you, Sarah, and take it away. And to add, sorry, what we would do is we do Q&A if you would like them at the end of Sarah's session when the questions are fresh in your mind. And then we'll do them again after Sophie's session. Obviously, if other questions come up and they come into your mind, please do. But we thought it might be easier to do that as things are fresh in your head. So over to you, Sarah. Oh, and you're on mute, Sarah.
Helps if I unmute.
Yes.
Always helps. Always helps. Apologies, got a bit of a screen issue going on today, so I might be glancing the other side just to read my notes, which are on the side. But anyway, thank you for coming today. So first thing I want to say today is that today isn't about becoming the perfect parent. It's just about understanding why our children react the way they do, what is happening inside their brains and bodies, and giving you a few practical tools that can make some holidays feel a bit calmer, hopefully for everyone. But here's what I want you to remember, and I chat to this when I chat to the team. I was working with a gorgeous paediatric team this week, is children don't actually want to give us a hard time. It's often they're having a hard time and they don't know how to verbalize it. So we'll go through that a little bit as we go through these slides. And I think that's really important, is that when we understand what's happening underneath the behavior, everything starts to change. Sorry, I'm having slide issues on my iPad as well today. Okay, I've got to remember to change these slides as well. So today's title is Building Strong Foundations, Supporting Children's Development from the Inside Out. Yes, so children don't want to give us a hard time. They're often having a hard time. And with that, I'm sure you've experienced some of these things. So summer holidays can often feel harder, especially when it's hot. It's very hot here today in Swansea. I think you guys are all mainly landlocked for more than us, so probably even hotter where you are. But these are some very simple examples, and depending on the age of your children, these examples will relate, or you'll have other versions. But a child can melt down over the wrong colour cup. They can argue with a sibling over nothing. They seem emotional 1 minute and then they're perfectly happy the next minute. Bedtime suddenly becomes impossible. They seem more anxious. They seem more clingy. They seem more overwhelmed. And I've lived through all of that. I'm sure you have as well. And it actually makes perfect sense when we think about it, because during the holidays, children will experience different routines, more excitement, more sugar, should we say it, later nights, less predictability and busy environments, and lots more social interaction than they do get during the school day. So their nervous systems are working on overdrive. They're not trying to be difficult. It's just their bodies are simply saying, I need help regulating. And a child's nervous system isn't fully regulated, fully developed until their early 20s. And this is learned through repeated experiences. And one of the most important things we need to remember is that children can't regulate alone. This kind of means telling them to calm down is a little bit pointless when they're really wound up. And kids love it when I tell them this in school, because all of them are like, we're told to calm down all the time. And they find this really amusing. But self-regulation actually starts with co-regulation with children and even with adults. And that means that children first learn calm and safety through relationships, through the tone of our voice, our facial expression, our predictability, our connection. And when a child is overwhelmed, the last thing they need is being told to calm down or being shamed or fear add into a very overloaded nervous system straight away. What they need is a calm nervous system helping nearby to bring them back to safety. And that doesn't mean we have to stay calm all the time, because we absolutely don't. We're usually doing 1,000,001 things because we are human. But it does mean to repair those connections, model healthy regulation, and just taking a pause together to support one another. So this is a very new development in the world of breathwork for children. We've created the regulation rangers. It took us a while to decide on the name. And they're a group of friendly characters who help children understand what's happening inside their brains. Children are taught where their stomach is, where their lungs are, where their heart is, what those jobs are. They're not taught in schools currently, unless their teacher's gone out of the way to teach it or find someone to come in and teach it, how their brain works, how the neuroscience behind it all. But children understand stories and characters. So that's what we've done. We've created some stories, some characters to go along with it. So this is Freya, our fire crab. My children name a lot of these, so I apologise for some of the random names. And she represents our amygdala. And yeah, I had to repeat that a lot before I kept saying it right, because I kept saying it wrong quite a few times. And Freya is our alarm system. So we have the amygdala in our brains, and it's constantly searching. It's not asking, are we happy? It's not looking for joy. It's looking for safety. And it's like an alarm. So this is why we've done it as a representation of a crab, because when a crab, especially a big one, is making lots of noise with its pincers, we can't think. It just overtakes our brains. So if she thinks there's a danger, she doesn't wait. She basically presses the panic button. Her pincers go nuts. But the problem is, as we explain to children, she can't tell the difference between a tiger about to pounce on us or someone just taking a toy. To Freya, both seem like awful, awful emergencies. And this is where Luma comes in. So Luma the turtle, she represents our prefrontal cortex. Luma is the one who helps us to think, solve problems, make good choices, use kind words, remember what we've just been asked to do. But when Freya sounds this alarm, and this is how we explain it to children with the claws clacking together, Luma doesn't like it. She hides, she goes offline. And this is why when children are overwhelmed, they can't listen, they can't think, they can't reason, and they can't explain what's wrong. Not because they won't, but because right then they literally can't. And this is so important to appreciate and understand in that moment in time. And then we have Hattie, our hippo, and she stores our memories. So she's the one that helps us to remember how to regulate and things. She helps us to remember, I've done this before, I know I'm safe, I know how to calm down. But when stress levels stay high, Hattie really struggles to do her job as well. So the biggest thing for us now is understanding all of this. So one of the biggest myths in parenting is if I explain it better, they'll understand. You know, we always want our children to be independent, we'll just explain it. But actually, when a child is dysregulated, reasoning is like trying to teach maths during a fire alarm. Their thinking brain isn't available. Their survival brain has taken over. And that's why saying calm down, use your words, what's wrong, doesn't work. Not because you're doing anything wrong as such, but their brain isn't developed enough, and our brains are the same when we're in a crisis mode. We're not ready. We need to connect first and then process the learning. So our brains and our bodies work together. When the alarm goes off, the body releases adrenaline, the heart beats faster, the breathing becomes quicker, muscles tighten, shoulders rise, hands clench, and eyes become alert. And this is brilliant if we want to escape danger. Absolutely brilliant. That's what we want. Not so helpful when we're just at Tesco and our favourite sweet isn't there, or we're at the beach, or on day 3 of the summer holidays when everyone's really hot and bothered. But the good news is, this is why we've created our Breathwork for Children program, is breathing works both ways. Your brain changes your breathing, but your breathing can also change your brain. And one of my favourite regulation ranges is Aura the whale. So Aura represents something called the vagus nerve. Think of it like the body's calming super highway that she rides along. When we breathe slowly, especially making the exhale longer, we're gently sending messages back to the brain saying, we are safe. Our heart rate will slow down, our muscles will soften, and our thinking returns. It's not magic, it's just neuroscience. Research consistently shows that slow, controlled breathing can support activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our body's rest and digest response, which helps reduce then the psychological stress and improve the emotional regulation of us all. So I want to try and experience some of our breathing technique, because regulated adults can help create regulated children. So I want you to imagine that you are quite stressed. I always use the Christmas dinner scenario, because I remember at Christmas I was trying to cook dinner, the fan was on, it was really hot, the dog was like fussing around my feet, the kids wanted 1,000,001 things at me, and I was like, I'm so overwhelmed right now. I remember trying to say to myself to take a breath before I responded. So this is one of our part of our ocean breathwork set, and I invite you for a minute just to enjoy this. So this breathing is probably one of my favourite ones. It's one my children use quite a lot. We use this when we first go in to introduce breathwork for children. So just sit where you are. If you like to close your eyes, you can leave them open. But I want you to imagine a wave, and I want you to imagine breathing that in for 4 seconds really slowly. So breathing in for the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just a very quiet shh on the out. 4, 3, 2, 1. And in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out. 4, 3, 2, 1. And one more time. In. 1, 2, 3, 4. And out. 4, 3, 2, 1. You'll notice that nothing dramatic happened, no fancy techniques, but just slowing down our exhale, helping our children catch their breath. That's exactly what we teach children to do. These small moments, little and often. Because emotional resilience isn't built during the meltdown. That's not the time for teaching this. It's built in all the calm moments beforehand. Just like brushing our teeth keeps them healthy, practicing calm breathing helps our nervous system be healthy. So if you remember anything this summer, these are the 3 things I want you to take away from today. Behaviour is communication. Connection. Behaviour is communication. So instead of asking what's wrong with my child or what's wrong with you right now, try thinking, what might their nervous system be telling me? Why aren't they feeling safe right now? What's happening under the surface? Connection before correction. Children borrow our calm before they learn to find their own. Sometimes they don't need another consequence because of an action they've done. They need someone whose nervous system feels safe to be able to talk through the action and move forward. And you need to practice this when they're feeling calm, not just when they're upset. The brain builds pathways through repetition. Tiny daily moments matter. 1 breath in the car, 1 breath before bedtime, 1 breath before football, before swimming lessons. These tiny moments become more powerful over time. As parents, we often spend so much of our time teaching children to read, write, ride bikes, swim. Very few of us were ever taught how to understand our own emotions or how to regulate our own nervous systems. But imagine if we create this generation growing up that knows, I can understand my brain. I know why my body is feeling like this. I know I have the tool inside myself that helps me feel calm again. I say this to the children, your breath goes everywhere with you. That doesn't mean they'll never, ever experience anxiety, anger, frustration. They're great feelings. We need those feelings. But it means they'll know what to do when those feelings arrive and how it makes their body feel inside. And that's the emotional resilience that's necessary and needed for us all. So we can't always change what's happening around our children, but we can change what happens inside them. And when children understand their brains, their bodies, their breathing, they're able to gain skills that can support them for life, one breath at a time.
Oh, Sarah, that was lush. I think we all as parents needed that before going into the summer holidays just for ourselves. That was absolutely delightful, Sarah. Thank you so much. And thank you for the amazing work that you're doing as well. I think we all needed that. I know that you sell those breathwork cards as well. If you want to pop a link to that in the chat. Before we hand over to Sophie, has anyone got any immediate questions or comments that you'd like to just pop in the chat while it's still fresh?
Well, Faye, you've just answered my question. I was thinking, where can I buy these? Because my kids, well, me as well, we're really visual. So actually having a pictures of like ways to talk about how the breathing is would be really helpful. So, but I'm going to go and check out your website now.
That was
I have
lush.
a question.
Go on,
Sorry,
Lorna.
well, first of all, apologies for not being on time. This was the reason I wasn't on time and why I've stayed off camera and mute. How soon, how early do you recommend starting breathwork? I use breathwork myself. How
Really early.
doing
I before I started training, I think back to when Flo was, I remember my husband worked away, and I remember she would just be really upset, and I could feel my nervous system getting overloaded and that. And I just remember holding her really tight. And looking back now, I didn't appreciate what I was doing, but I was just breathing. I used to take 10 really slow, deep breaths. So I would say, as young as possible, there are ways for you to do it at any age. Isabella is on here and she'll be an advocate for me, hopefully, because I went into nursery to teach her at the nursery class. And even her daughter, who's a lot younger, well, 2, they're doing it at home, and they tell Isabella to do puffer fish breathing, which is another one of our characters.
Definitely. My 2-year-old, she always says, when I say take a deep breath, you're feeling frustrated, she'll go to the room and find the card with the puffer fish breath. She doesn't completely get it, but the idea is in her mind there. And then the 4-year-old does get it, and he came home to see a situation that wasn't as he envisioned. I could see a tantrum was bubbling, and then he found Luma the turtle in his pocket, took it out, this little turtle, held it, and then just started breathing and doing this with his fingers. And then he was fine. He said, right, let's go back in. And it really worked.
Oh, lots of people are asking for links here, Sarah. Please do.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on it. I'm on it. Yeah, so all the cards come. My blur things on, so they're not showing them, but they're little A6 cards, and they come with a little stand. And as Sophie said, the idea of creating these was we do sell them as digital copies. We very much try to be a screen-free family as much as possible. So I wanted to create something physical as well. And the idea is you would kind of use like one card at a time. Well, your children will naturally relate to a card or a breath more for them. And all the breathwork cards, they have at the top little it's like bubble breathing for worrying or first day nervous feelings, whale song breathing, big feelings, trap thoughts. They all say examples of when the type of breath can be helpful. And yeah, there's a range on there and affirmations and stuff. So the idea is you would have it there and find a time that works for you. For some people, I've heard the morning. Some have done it before bed. Some have done it in the car. So it's finding that time that works, but it's that repetition and those moments of calm doing it together. And it does help. My husband's even got on board now. He's like, so it actually works. I'm like, yeah, I know. I know it works. So I tell everyone it works. So yeah.
Well, Sarah, I'm on your website right now. So which cards are we looking at? Because you've got loads of different ones. You've got jungle breath physical cards.
So they're more, so I'd say the jungle and the ocean ones, I'd say are aimed at younger children. Saying that my daughter 9, she loves the ocean set, and she is Flo.
That Flo cards.
Flo is Flo, named after her. The jungle ones just have a bit more movement. So I'd say like for Toby, for example, my boy, he loves doing the breathwork. He does love the relaxing ones. But now and again, he is your typical boy that needs to move. So we've incorporated some sort of ones in there like elephant arms where you're moving your body as well as the breath.
And that's
we
more
then
that one.
Yeah, we then got asked to create the affirmation ones because somebody's child was struggling with their feelings at different times. So we created an affirmation set as well. So on the front, it's got like an affirmation, which is quite a nice affirmation to have in your room, and then the breath to match behind. But if anyone's got any questions about the different cards, or which is the best for them, just drop me a message at any time. We've sort of shared them on our socials and a little blurb about them all. I am conscious I need to update the resources of the website, but as Faye knows, when it's sunny, I had to like peel myself away from the sun today to come inside for this call.
Yeah, I love your style with the sun, Sarah. Thank you so much. Anyone else got a question or comment before we hand over to Sophie? You can, of course, if anything pops into your mind as we go on, that's fine as well. But we thought we would just do it in 2 sections. In case anyone, just give you a moment before we hand over to Sophie. But Sarah, that was just lovely.
Thank you.
I've got a question actually before we
Yeah.
hand over. Without being too pointed towards my own husband, what do you do when someone else in the room is saying calm down to your child? Any?
I think to be fair, it took Mike quite a long time. So he was out of work for quite a few months, and I was having to go back to work. And my daughter really, really struggled with that. I wasn't around a lot in the evenings, and I was saying to him, just talk. Like what she doesn't need is you nagging at her, and then you end up arguing. And I can just hear it bubbling and bubbling away when I'm in the office. I was like, just take a deep breath yourself. Lots of times she just needed a hug. That's what she needs. You get to know how your children respond. It's education. Get him to watch this video. It's literally explaining how saying calm down is almost tickling that little crab in our brains, and it's going to go louder and louder and louder. Our children will respond negatively to that because it's a bit like when we're wound up as females. Someone tells us to calm down. You're like, right, I don't want to calm down, or I am calm. So I think it is just education as well for our husbands. And unfortunately, I think a lot of our husbands are out of work or that sort of way and don't have the time to find out about this stuff. So yeah, it is just education. I would like to do a parent class, but I'm trying to work out whether to do it during the day for some, do it in the evening, just record it sort of based on this, just to send out, because I think it's tricky to get a time when it works for everybody. But I think there's so much education out there that we weren't taught, but can really help children relationships. And I know, Faye, you've got teenagers, and that can be a tricky time in any child's life as well. So their little nervous systems are really sort of trying to be independent, but they're not quite there yet. So it's making sure that the connection remains. So
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at with mine at the moment. Definitely trying to be independent, solve problems on their own, but as a consequence, perhaps coming to you then too late, or
yeah.
Yeah. Right, Sarah, thank you so much. I'm going to wrap there because I'm aware that Sophie's sitting in a state of readiness. Ready. Although hopefully all this beautiful breathwork, Sophie, has now put you in the best possible place. So going to hand over to Sophie now. So Sophie is a specialist paediatric occupational therapist, and she's going to be talking about how the earliest stages of development can influence just about everything. So it's over to you, Sophie.
Great. Hi, everyone. Let me just bring up my notes. Hopefully there. Can you see that okay?
Looking amazing.
Well, okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Sophie from Helping Your Child Get Back into Your Body and Ready to Learn. So, I thought I'd start today by sharing a little bit about me. So, after graduating as an occupational therapist, I began working with children within schools. And what soon became really apparent was that actually I really wanted to help these children at a much deeper level with much longer lasting solutions. I then realized that actually the thing that had helped me the most when I was younger and a teenager after being diagnosed with dyslexia and dyspraxia and was so instrumental in my development and my emotional regulation was definitely actually the thing that I now wanted to train in. So I subsequently trained in what helped me to transform my life to be able to actually now help transform other children's lives. I now typically work with children aged between 7 to 12 years old who are struggling to read, write, sit still, focus, coordinate their bodies, and regulate their emotions. If you think there's a quick fix out there, there's not. Okay. But hopefully after today, you'll be able to understand that there is, in fact, a solution for some children, which has long-lasting effects and which work at an extremely deep neurological level that actually make those changes for life. So let's get into it. Today, I'm going to talk to you about primitive reflexes and the impact they can have on a child's later development. If you've never heard of primitive reflexes, please don't worry, you are absolutely not alone. So to keep things really simple, essentially primitive reflexes are a group of motor movements found in newborn babies. These develop within the womb as they're really essential for that birthing process, as they actually help the baby move down the birth canal, for example, and support that early survival, such as feeding and grasping and responding to danger. So, for example, actually, when a baby is first born, if you place them on your stomach, they will have an automatic crawling reflex that will allow them to crawl up and to be able to feed. So these primitive reflexes also enable a baby to carry out those first movements and enable them to hit those developmental milestones. For example, being able to reach out and touch something, or to be able to independently lift their head up, to roll, to crawl, to stand, and then eventually walk. Now, all being well, the primitive reflexes have gone through all their job and their tick list perfectly. These should be fully inhibited and integrated within the body by the age of 1. Now, they don't disappear completely in case later on in life, for example, you have an illness or a stroke where you have to relearn those basic movements again. And that's when these primitive reflexes kick in and allow you to be able to learn how to walk again, for example, pick up a knife and fork. So an important factor to note is that our brain and body are hugely connected, just like Sarah was mentioning earlier on as well. And how we move our body has a huge impact on how we move on what goes on in our brain, and what goes on in our brain has a huge impact on our body. So a child's first language is movement. And every single movement that we make and all those milestones that we reach as babies have a huge impact on how we learn, how we interact with our environment, and also how we communicate. So if these movements don't happen in quite the right order and at the right time, this can have this massive knock-on effect and this impact on a child's overall development later on, both mentally and physically. Many of our early developmental milestones help us to navigate around our environment and affect us physically later in life. But there are some early movements, such as a baby's startle reflex, which you'll see in this picture, which, if not developed properly, can affect a child's level of anxiety, hypersensitivity, and ability to actually communicate on a social level later in childhood and even adulthood as well. If these milestones are not met and the brain connections are not made at the right time, but don't worry, there is actually a solution later on. So just in a bit of a nutshell, to keep things really simple, babies need to go through particular milestones. If they don't meet those milestones in the right order and the right time, then correct pathways in the brain are either not created or perhaps not made quite strong enough, which can have a major impact on a child's life as they grow. That's it in a nutshell. So there are a number of factors which might affect the development of these primitive reflexes and subsequently the inhibition of them within the first couple of years of life. However, it's really important that all of you today go away feeling like this is just knowledge I want you to go away with. I don't want holding any guilt at all, because in those early first years, we are trying to get that baby out. We are doing the very best we can during pregnancy. So if some of these are factors, it doesn't necessarily mean they are directly causational to some of your child's challenges right now, but they are potentially factors, okay? So don't want anyone walking away holding guilt on their shoulders today. That's the main takeaway. But these factors could be contributing to some later challenges around perhaps you had a difficult pregnancy, a challenging birth, perhaps a C-section, or perhaps the child had lots of chronic ear infections or recurring viral infections or high temperatures and traumas earlier on in life. And because of the speed at which the baby's brain is growing, even a small delay can have a big knock-on effect to a child's later development, just like ripples in an ocean. One small drop in the water can soon ripple out into larger ripples. Essentially, it's a bit like a house and the foundation. Unless those foundations are strong and sturdy, then it doesn't matter actually what we do with the rest of the house, putting up pictures, painting walls, mending the roof, unless we actually go back and correct the foundation of the house is not going to be quite as sturdy as it should be. So let's take a little look at how I work, particularly at this foundation level with children. Follow a particular 3-step system, identifying which connections need to be made, restoring them through repetitive exercises, which mirror those actually found in babies, which then transforms their foundations and allows them to thrive and flourish. Now, you might be wondering, how on earth are these primitive reflexes affecting my child? So let's dive in a little bit deeper into what some of these primitive reflexes are and how they can be displaying themselves. So one of the most common primitive reflexes that I see in children that I work with is this asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, the ATNR for short. Essentially, this is the baby's first hand-eye movement. It develops at about 18 weeks after conception and should be fully developed at birth in the baby born at full term. It should be inhibited by the age of around 4 to 6 months, but if it's retained beyond 6 months, can interfere with subsequent motor development such as rolling, commando crawling, and control of upright balance, crossing that midline of the body, the center of the body, eye movement, and hand-eye coordination. Now, there are a number of challenges that can be experienced if this ATNR remains active in a child as they get older. The main ones being writing, reading, where crossing the midline and that hand-eye coordination are both necessary components. So I recently worked with a young boy who, when he first came to see me, was really struggling with his writing. He was struggling with correct spacing, the use of lines, which was making it really difficult to read. And he found holding a pen really challenging, and his ideas really struggled to actually flow. But by following a set program with very specific, simple exercises, targeting this asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, he began actually writing far more fluently using cursive writing, and he was actually enjoying writing for the first time. Another primitive reflex, which I commonly see still active in children, is the tonic labyrinthine reflex, the TLR short, which is present at birth, as its initial role is to help a baby move down the birth canal. So it's noticeable in a newborn when they are held in the supine position, as you can see in that lower picture. If the head is lowered below the level of the spine, the arms and legs will extend. And if the head is raised above the level of the spine, the arms and legs will flex back in again. And what these head writing reactions provide is actually the basis for control of balance, general coordination, and control of eye movements. Retention of this TLR is associated with poor balance, poor muscle tone, control of eye movements needed for reading, writing, copying of maths, and can also affect spatial awareness, which can impact on a person's social interaction as well. Last year, I worked with an 8-year-old who was really struggling to ride a bike and scooter due to his difficulties around balance and spatial awareness. And this was really actually starting to affect his friendship groups, as he wasn't able to join in with his peers after school. But after working together for just a few months, riding both his bike and his scooter soon actually became some of his favourite activities, and it opened up his entire friendship group as well. Interestingly, exercises targeting this same primitive reflex had a very different outcome for another child who I worked with. She was really struggling with her maths and was receiving additional maths tuition. After being on the program for 6 months, her maths was improving so much that she was able to actually stop attending her maths tutoring and was for the first time keeping up with her peers in class. Now for the Moro reflex. Now, this one has a lot to answer for, as it's responsible for our fight-flight mode, and it's linked to every single one of our sensory systems. As well as affecting our motion sickness and balance, it can make us hypersensitive and can be the reason behind why we have such high levels of anxiety. If this Moro reflex remains active post the first year of life, it can cause hypersensitivity in one or several sensory channels, and it could also be linked to motion sickness and poor balance. The Moro reflex is often a factor actually in symptoms of anxiety, panic disorder, hormonal problems, and also some allergies as well. I'm currently working with a girl who only a few months ago was really suffering with intermittent high levels of anxiety. She was really stopping her from seeing her friends, and she was 16 and also going out with them and going on school trips. But after only a couple of months out of carrying out the exercises, working on these Moro reflex, she was visibly a much more confident girl, and her levels of anxiety considerably reduced, allowing her to actually now go out and enjoy her time with her friends, which was a huge relief, not only obviously for her, but also her parents and her family. I also worked with a boy last year who, when we first started working together, he was really suffering with a huge amount of motion sickness, so much that actually he struggled to be in a car for any more than half an hour without feeling sick, and nothing was helping. But after working together for a few months, his motion sickness completely cleared up, and his family were able to take 6 to 8 hour car journeys without him having any sickness at all, which is like that, a little bit like that ripple effect we were talking about earlier on, which, because we changed that for him, it had that knock-on effect actually to the whole family. So that's it. Thank you for listening, and I really hope that actually you found some of this interesting. A little gift I'd like to, a little freebie for you all today, is if you click on this QR code, you can access a free e-booklet. It's called From Fidget to Focus, 10 Simple Exercises to Help Your Child Sit Still and Engage, which contains lots of exercises you can easily try at home to help start creating a more fluid connection between the brain and the body. Please note, however, that these exercises are not from the primitive reflex program, but they are more generic, I guess, occupational therapy exercises that can still help, especially over the summer holidays. I'll also add the link to the chat as well if you can't access on a QR code. And if any of this has resonated with any of you and you think, oh my gosh, that is my child, then, and you're curious to sort of take that next step, then I'd also like to give you a free assessment. I do these both online and in person. I'm based in the Peak District, generally quite far from a lot of you, so we can easily do these online, so geography needn't be a barrier. And if this assessment actually reveals that there are indeed some active primitive reflexes which could be contributing to some of your child's challenges, then I also offer a complimentary, free subsequent consultation so that we can actually explore what's going on with your child and how we might be able to unblock their potential. Or if you just want to have a little chat about primitive reflexes and are just generally curious, then I am always up for a chat. So thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Sophie, that was amazing. Gosh, that was absolutely fascinating. That's a whole world there that I knew nothing about whatsoever. Just fabulous. Has anyone got any questions or comments that they'd like to pop to Sophie?
I've just put the link in, by the way, for that if you didn't manage to get the QR code.
Yes. Did I see your hand go up?
I did, yeah. I've got a quick question. Obviously, it's for children and the primitive. It's super interesting. Thank you so much. At what point can you not change it? So I'm thinking about adults. I'm thinking about myself, my husband. I'm thinking about my daughter who's 18.
Yeah.
At what point can you not change it?
There's no time. You could do it. I've worked with adults in the past. The only challenge I found with doing it with adults is adults' ability to stick to the program. Children are generally so much better because the parents are saying, come on, let's do it. But I've worked with teenagers. Teenagers are also gets a little bit harder sometimes just because, again, they feel like, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do it. But again, I have had teenagers that have gone through the whole program, which I think is pretty awesome that they did that. I did it when I was 16. So there's no age limit as to when they can do it, but nothing really below the age of 7 for these particular exercises, just because of the amount of time it takes to do the exercises. In terms of the length of the program, it's only about 5 minutes a day, but it's about doing those movements every single day for the duration of about 10 to 12 months. Because just like what Sarah was mentioning earlier on, it's about actually doing those little things all the time, which then add up to sort of hitting those milestones. It's like a baby, they don't just crawl straight away. So no, there's 18 adults, doesn't matter, either's fine.
That's really helpful, thank you.
Yeah, good news for all of us. Anyone else? Any questions or comments? I'm going to stop this recording right now. Stop recording.